If you're listening to this podcast, you probably have a closet full of clothes. And when you need an outfit, you find one. And that is a privilege worth acknowledging. Now imagine preparing for an interview, maybe the job of your life, and opening that closet door and coming up empty. Maybe you recently left an unsafe situation, or maybe your current job doesn't require you to wear a suit and dress shoes, but this one does. How do you get what you need? Well, our guest today has the answer. Amara Martin is the CEO of Dress for Success Denver, an organization that's been supporting women since 2006, making sure that they have the wardrobe, the confidence, and the tools to land the job they want and to thrive once they're there. That includes career coaching, leadership development, and a powerful network of support every step of the way, including the first step of getting that great outfit. Amara, welcome to How I Turned the Corner.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Yes, I'm so glad you're here. I think this conversation is so important because I think it's kind of easy to forget how hard it can be for people to do some basic things, like, getting an outfit put together. And
Mhm.
I'm just so grateful for the work that you do. And I have actually, over the years, donated probably too much to you guys. I didn't mention that earlier because I just, you end up with nice clothes that,
Mhm.
don't fit anymore, or just don't quite fit the style you have anymore, or aren't even necessary for the job that you have. And it's like, what do you do? Well, let's get those repurposed for someone who really needs it. And I just love this. I love that organization.
Thank you so much. We're thrilled. This is actually our 20th year of service in Denver, and we have served just over 24,000 women. So
Wow.
those clothes, that excess clothes that you have gone to over 24,000 women right here in the Denver metro area.
It's really powerful. That's really powerful. So I think, I think a lot of my listeners are leaders and
Mhm.
CEOs.
Mhm.
And I think sometimes lose a little bit of sight into just those day-to-day things that people struggle with. And I think we can say in most metro areas in the United States, if people are making less than $25 a month, or $25 an hour, I mean, there is more month than money.
Mhm.
And they're going to struggle. And they're going to struggle and need services. I know that what you do with is Dress for Success is making sure people look great, but that you and I both know that that is nothing in terms of what's going to make them successful. It's just a
Correct.
small step. Can you
Correct.
share what else you're doing to help support these amazing women to finding work that's going to help them, prosper in our world?
Mhm. Absolutely. Well, I thank you so much for giving me a platform to share how we are going beyond the suit. I think everyone knows about that. That's the easy part. You come in, you get a personal stylist, you get a wonderful outfit, shoes, jewelry, all of those things, but that's just one side of the coin. So we are actually running 4 programs across our Denver metro area. And we have an in house career center where women have the opportunity to meet one on one with a trained career coach. This is vital because every individual's journey is different. And you are going to need to practice, rehearse, to have someone teach you how to sell yourself. How do you line up a job description with your skills? And to really help you build that confidence so that you can go into a job interview prepared, or you can be ready to go on your first day of work. Then I have 2 programs that are taking place off site from our location. The most important one is our professional women's group. And this is our in house networking group for when you find a job. Now what? Now you've got a myriad of all these different challenges that you may have never had before. And you have to figure out, how do I manage work and life? How do I continue to be healthy and work? How can I start a business if I need to have a side gig? And so all of those things that are going to help someone become more self sufficient in our world, we give them access to through that professional women's group. But what I also think is extremely important, they get the opportunity to build community. The epidemic of loneliness is a big deal. And it's not just in the demographic that I'm serving, it's all of us. This
Mhm.
is one of those leftovers from the COVID years. People are incredibly lonely. They are very isolated. You're working from home. You're not working at all. You've lost your community. And what our professional women's group does, it builds community and it helps them get an extension of family from their peers, which is powerful. And we see extreme success in this. In fact, 68% of the women that are in that group keep their job or get a promotion within the first year.
Hmm.
Then, my final program that we are operating, which is actually allowing us to fulfill our expansion dreams, is our butterfly bus. This is a 20-foot box truck that has been retrofit into a mobile boutique, and it allows us to travel across Colorado serving individuals living in pockets of poverty. We didn't plan for this to serve youth. That was not my objective, but as you know, sometimes you build something and the people will come. And so 75% of the individuals that we are serving are ages 24 and under.
Oh, wow. Wow, that is incredible. I mean, I love that so much. And yeah, I wouldn't have thought about that population. Didn't even cross my mind. But that makes a lot of sense. And
Mm-hmm,
we want to prepare them as just as much as anyone else to be successful in the
mm-hmm,
work world. So, oh,
mm-hmm,
that's great. Well, so in your journey then, what are some of the things that you see companies doing well? So companies that are doing a good job supporting the women,
mm-hmm,
what are they doing inside the company to help support these
mm-hmm.
ladies?
Absolutely. I think anytime leadership can, first of all, acknowledge individuals' differences and acknowledge that everyone does not have the same career path. So some people, they went to school, they got a job, they got another job, they moved up in the company, and that is their path. But more often than not, the path is all over the place. You may have never gone to school. You got a part-time job. You got married, had a child, had to go back to school, then had to take off, take care of your parents, and had to do, there is no direct path in order to a goal. And I think as a leader, recognizing that and seeing the value in that. We speak a lot about those transferable job skills, those life skills that really help propel us in our careers. I know personally, I use a lot of skills that I learned from playing sports. I was a huge athlete. I'm over 6 feet. So, when you're tall like that, they give you a ball and they're like, learn how to play with this so you can go to college for free. And that is one of the things that I did. And I use every day skills from my volleyball career in my professional life and really expanding your idea of a skill set to include those athletics, those families, and all of those other skills. The other thing that I think employers do well, and I would love to see them do more, is creating areas for a sense of belonging.
Mm,
We hear that phrase, belonging. And what does that mean? I think it means creating an environment for your teams to have human, genuine interactions. So rather that is a team event, a team building event, going to volunteer together. When you see the people that you work with and the people who work for you as individual humans who are living a human experience, then that allows you to level that playing field for them, to value them more, and to teach others around you how to appreciate every individual.
mm. Yeah, no, I think that's really important. And I think it is often missed because there's all this carryover from, I guess, the industrial age of
Mm-hmm.
these rigid rules that don't allow for those
Mm-hmm.
things. You know,
Right.
I sometimes I think I fall victim to this a little bit too when I'm building the business case for some of the stuff that we do. But,
Mm-hmm.
getting people to be more productive is kind of one of the one of the hallmarks of the industrial age. Well, when
Mm-hmm.
they're productive, they're not sitting around chatting and getting to know each other.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that can often feel like you're trading culture for profit.
Mm-hmm.
When in reality, when you create that community where people feel like they belong, they stick, they innovate, they look for ways to bring in more revenue or cut costs, they look
Mhm.
for ways to do things
Mhm.
better when they're actually all in it, kind of working on this common cause. I think
Mhm.
that's overlooked. And I think that's kind of what you're saying as well as maybe a byproduct of creating an
Mhm.
environment where people feel like they belong.
Mhm. It is. It absolutely is. That environment, and you have to pick and choose, right? Because we do need to be productive in our workplaces, and we have goals and metrics to meet. But we also want to increase the satisfaction on the job for our teams and our employees. And with women who are coming, especially from a demographic that Dress for Success is working with, these are individuals who don't have that clear work path, who are not 100%. It is productivity, productivity, productivity. There's a shift that is happening where it's more relationship based. We have relationship in our goals. We have relationship, and particularly with women, it is very relationship driven. And if you are a savvy leader, you understand the power in that relationship will drive more productivity.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's definitely what I've seen with my own team. So, and since COVID, we've been really intentional about trying to create more of that space when we do come together. So everyone feels like they know each other and there's more of a friendship and more community because
Mhm.
it is a little bit harder to do that with just purely Zoom or
Right,
Teams interactions.
right.
I think you can do it, but it's not the same as, when you're actually face to face, for sure.
Mhm. Oh,
Mhm.
yeah. There was a study I was reading about the neuroscience of eye contact and what eye contact actually means and what it does to you. And if you think about it, when you're on Zoom, you're often looking at yourself.
Right.
Like it's hard to look at the other people or to make eye contact with the camera. So you end up looking at yourself, which is not soothing, which is, I look at myself all the time. I know what I look like. But when I make eye contact with other people in my brain, it's soothing, it's welcoming. It's like our eyes are communicating with each other. And that's just eye contact, let alone a simple touch or like a handshake or something. And so it's that connection that we have. I'm grateful for the technology, but the technology is not going to replace that connection. And especially when building our teams.
Hmm. Hmm. So what are things then? Let's do the flip. Like, what do you see some employers not doing well? I mean, aside from obviously just the obvious ones of like the opposite of what you were saying a minute ago. Like, what are things maybe they're doing possibly unintentionally, or maybe just because they, just sort of lack the awareness that would
Mm-hmm.
make life easier and make things easier for the women that
Mm-hmm.
you work with?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. I've got two things for you. The first one, the rigidness of rules. That rigid rules. These are our rules. These are our commandments. This is how we do things. You take 1 week off a year. That's it. You do not leave early. You do not come in late. Forget it if it's a blizzard or if your child has pneumonia. None of that. These are the rules. This is how it works. There is a black and white to rules, and there's not,
Right.
especially with the individuals that we are working with. There is not this black and white. There's very gray. Some things can be very black and white, but for the most part, there's a lot of things that are gray. And there's a lot of things that I have seen employers who are just standing on those rules. And these are our pillars for success. And this is the only way that it works. There's no other way that it works. Well, that doesn't thrive innovation, that stifles it. And so I've seen that be an issue. And I've seen some women leave positions because it's just too rigid, it's just too rules oriented. And it's just not, it doesn't work. It doesn't work with their reality. And then the
That's
second thing I will say is really understanding and appreciating their reality. Just because you're doing well and you have a home and you have a car and your family might be doing well and you've got money to go to the grocery store does not mean everybody else does. And in our city, especially Denver, I'm a Denver native. So I have seen Denver like go from a small town to like this wannabe big city. And anytime you have something like that, the levels of poverty or the working poor in particular get really, really high.
Mhm.
And so you could have someone working for you who is working very hard. And this person is putting in the hours, they are doing the work, and they may be technically homeless. They may be couch surfing. They may not be able to make the ends meet that you are making the ends meet. I don't share that to make you feel bad.
Right.
I share that to increase your empathy for individuals and realizing that everybody's journey and everybody's situation is not your own. So I think that leaders and companies can do a better job of that and just acknowledging it. And there's simple ways to acknowledge it. What type of information is on your company's social media? What type of stories are you sharing about your employees? What type of posters, simple posters, flyers, do you have in your back room? Are they about productivity or are they about people? Are they about understanding your city? It is so important that we educate ourselves because it's so easy in Denver where we don't have like a lot of public transportation. You could be in your car with the windows up and totally ignoring everything that is going on in your city because it would never touch you. Whereas if you had to ride a light rail or if you had to take a bus or walk like some other large metropolitan cities, you would have to touch it. You would have to see it. And I would encourage leaders to force yourself to see it. Look for it in your company because I guarantee that it's there. And it may be in a place that you don't know. And those are the types of things that you can celebrate. You can cheer for someone and use that as an example of the power of you investing in your people rather than a detriment.
Yeah, so such beautiful points. And if I could just continue to add on to that, like one of the things that just makes me crazy is these rigid schedules too,
Mm-hmm,
of like you
mm-hmm,
must, I mean, I get there are certain jobs,
mm-hmm,
absolutely, where a schedule needs to be followed. And there's also plenty of other ways to set up a little bit more agency, as we like
mm-hmm,
to say, around the schedule.
mm-hmm,
But having to show up at 8 in the morning and leave at 5 at night because of this, again, industrial rule,
mm-hmm,
and there's no reason for it, it just drives me bananas.
mm-hmm,
And I think it's especially hard for working moms because oftentimes there's other circumstances that are going to make it's going to make it impossible to meet that schedule, and it's
mm-hmm,
forgotten. I think I've told this story on this podcast before, but I'm going to count on people not have hearing it before. But we had a client that was really struggling with his first shift. He was a manufacturing site because all of the workers, for the most part, would be showing. The shift started at 6, and everyone showed up at like 6:15, or they would show up super early. Well, you and I know why. Because we experience public transportation. I have taken the bus many times, and buses run on their own schedule. They weren't running on a schedule that was going to get people from the heart of Boulder to where our client's location was at 6 o'clock. So either they got there super early or they got there late. Well,
mm-hmm,
between the two, what are you going to probably do? It's going to depend on your schedule. And so we ended up working with RTD, the local bus route, group here, and convinced them to shift their one of their routes so that it was coming and landing at 5:45. But it's like that kind of advocacy, like who's going to think to go back to, the public transportation to say we need a different bus route so that our people can get here. Now, the easier answer would have been just to move the shift, but let's let's take the hard route.
There's always more than one way.
Yes.
And I really like the power. So you see the power of the company versus the individual, because I wouldn't think that I would have the power to change the Department of Transportation. I can't make a request to them. But if you have a great leader who understands the value of using their power that they have with the muscle of the company behind them to advocate change for their people, which is going to trickle down into other individuals and in other companies, that is really important. That's something I've had to learn. That is, I really, and I'm still in the process of learning that. I have worked at Dress for Success for 19 years. Okay. This
Amazing.
is pretty much my first very professional job. I started off as a volunteer and then I ran programs for 10 years. I was the very first employee hired. I had no nonprofit background, none. I didn't even really have a corporate background. I never have. But I had to learn. And I had to learn all of these things. And then I had to learn that power of advocacy. because I would see change and I would see things that needed to change. And I want to say something to that company, or I want to have a voice, but I didn't feel like I had a voice. I'm
Mm.
just running programs for this nonprofit. Who am I? Well, I actually had a whole lot more power than I knew, than I thought I did. So I would mention something and start to see change. And it was amazing. And it wasn't just in other companies, it would be in halfway houses, community reentry locations that we're working with, some shelters, just mentioning some things that I have seen. And by mentioning that as a valued partner, I'm using that power that I have in order to drive change and innovation in service. So when I became a CEO, I understood this. And I now have this opportunity to have this conversation with you on this podcast and really using my experience to really drive that change. And for me, it's almost like I have to step outside of myself. It's like I step outside of Amara, like Amara, she's over here, she's doing that. But then I got to step up over into this and I have to drive change and understand that my words carry weight and that I can really speak, advocate, and help people.
That's such a great point. And I think especially, I don't know, maybe the communities and the folks who, for whatever reason, kind of grew up in an environment where they weren't necessarily empowered on a daily basis. I think
Mm-hmm,
we forget to do that. We forget that we do have the power. There's certainly a subset of the population that don't struggle with that at all, but then let's use the power for good, for sure, right?
mm-hmm,
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's
mm-hmm,
a great point. So then kind of back to then the second thing that you said that employers were doing not doing as well in
mm-hmm,
terms of making sure that that they're seeing the whole person.
mm-hmm,
Um, I think that's another really important thing that came out of COVID that was really positive is that people were starting to get to a place where they were bringing their whole self into work. I was
mm-hmm,
seeing that because I started my business in 2011. So I've been kind of observing how people think about work and talk about work for, almost a decade before COVID
mm-hmm,
hit. And I was hearing people say things like, I want to be able to have like flexibility because I need to be able to take care of my kid, or I want to work for a company that allows me to bring my dog to work. Like
mm-hmm,
those were the
mm-hmm,
bleeding edges of seeing the whole person in those earlier days, where now like we bring our whole self to work all the time. And so many managers don't know what to do with that. Right. I've had some managers call me up recently and say, I have an employee that's asking for a mental health day. What do I do?
mm-hmm.
And it's like, what's the difference between a mental health day and a regular sick day? Like, they just need a break. Like, come
Give
on,
it to them.
give it to them. Yes. Why do you even care what they're doing with their time off? Right? As an example. But what are some other, like, maybe things that would be simpler or not simpler, but what are other things that employers can do to see the whole person that you're
Mm-hmm,
seeing right now?
mm-hmm. I think creating an environment for them to tell you the truth.
Ah,
Now, that's tricky because oftentimes employees don't want to go to their boss and say, hey, hi, it's me. Excuse me. I need a mental health day, or I don't like it when you say this in the meeting.
yeah.
Okay. So, creating that environment, it can be as simple as putting a suggestion box in the lunch area, something, bringing an outside person in to do like a 360 review with your team and really creating that arena, because you don't want to necessarily hear from the ones that are speaking all the time. You want to hear from those ones that are really quiet, who are keeping to themselves, because they often have the best ideas because they're sitting back and watching
Hmm.
everything, and they're watching and they're looking. And I think that that is so important. And then I also think you can lead by example and start bringing elements of yourself into your workplace. I know for the past 4 years, I've been on a sickness journey. I'm a cancer survivor. I've had 4 surgery. I've had all kinds of
Oh,
stuff, okay, for the past 4 years. And at first, my gut instinct was to hide.
yeah.
Well, I couldn't hide. Like, I can't. I can't hide. some of these things are going to be obvious. People are seeing me in a wheelchair being pushed around. People are seeing me coming in and out of the chemotherapy that I was on. I didn't lose all of my hair, but I lost a lot of it. And, I lost a lot of weight. I was very ill. It was very public. And rather than hide, because I literally couldn't, I just kind of went with it. They saw me come in and I would come in the office and then I would take a break, put my head down and go to sleep because I was exhausted all of the time. I had to work from home at least 1 or 2 days a week. I had to get rides because I was in a wheelchair for a certain amount of time and unable to walk and unable to move and in and out of the hospital. And, and I kept doing my schedule, probably more than I should have, but they saw that. And there were even a couple of times I might have shed a tear.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't apologize for that because I'm a human being first before I'm a worker, before I'm a leader.
Mm-hmm.
And what I noticed in my team, and even in the women that I'm serving, they saw that human in me. And so they're doing it more often. And so that leading by example, don't just do what I say. I'm saying that you can do all these things. No, I'm going to show you. I'm going to show up and shock you and say something. Like I remember my dog died and I was like, oh God. And I was in the office and I'm like, I have to be here because I have meetings with my dog. And they saw that. And so when that happened with one of my team members, I'm like, I completely understand.
Mm-hmm.
You want to come to work. You don't want to be at home because then you're going to be an even bigger mess. You want to be here. You want to do the work that you need to do. But if you need to cry at your desk, you cry at your desk all day.
Mm-hmm.
That is fine with me. And so that leading by example has been really powerful in my life. And I would challenge leaders because sometimes it's hard, especially if you're a new leader, to really do the example, to be the example for people to see. But I challenge you to do it, and I think it will build a better team from it.
Yeah, yeah, that is so true. And I'm so sorry you went through all that. That is a lot. And I'm glad that you did model that sort of vulnerability a little bit because I think that is definitely one of the bigger challenges of balancing vulnerability with also not like freaking people out,
Right.
right, as a leader.
Mhm.
But it certainly builds empathy as a fast path to empathy.
Mhm.
But I am sorry still that you went through that. That is not a fun way to learn empathy in that particular instance, at least. So, yeah. Mm.
I'm
Well,
grateful.
yeah, yeah. No, I know. I'm actually always grateful for the bottom drops of my life. I'm
Mhm.
not grateful for them in the moment, but
No,
later on, I'm like, look how strong I am.
there you go.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think then kind of to close us out today, I would love to just let you share with our listeners, like, how can we support you and support
Mhm.
the population that you help?
Absolutely. So, like I had said in the beginning, Dress for Success is turning 20 years old this year, which is so special. I mean, I can't believe it's been 20 years and 24,000 women that have come through our doors.
It's
It is
incredible.
truly miraculous.
Totally.
And I like to
Such a
share with
gift.
people we have 4 employees. Now I have 5 employees, and we serve about 2,700 women a year.
Ah,
And the only reason that we are able to do that is because of public support.
yeah.
We are a project of the people. And so, the number one way that you can support us, you can get involved, you can volunteer, you can donate your time as a personal stylist or as a career coach, or you can get a team together and come down on a donation day and help us sort clothing, shoes, jewelry, accessories. Even that 1 hour contribution that you could donate could really help us serve women on a regular basis. And then the second thing are those donations. Every single woman I know has at least one extra handbag sitting at home. Some have 10.
Mm-hmm.
Or you have those pants that have miraculously shrunk on you in the closet. And for some reason, they just don't fit anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And you, rather than throwing those out, you could give them to us and we could sew them back into the lives of a woman who is starting her journey. And so clean out your closet, the clothes, the shoes, the jewelry, the handbags, all of those things that can be worn to work. We take donations the second Saturday of every month from 10 a.m. until 2 p.m. And all of your donations are tax deductible.
Mm.
Then the last way that you can support us, you can make a financial investment or a financial contribution. You as an individual or even your company, you could use the company match and really making an investment in to Dress for Success Denver. Our goals for the next couple of years, our big goal, which is actually moving along very nicely, is to become Dress for Success Colorado. And that would mean serving the entire state, all the way up north, down to Colorado Springs and Pueblo, and even into some mountain communities, because there are pockets of poverty everywhere, and there are individuals that need us. And so, as we pursue this expansion, we definitely are going to need support. And so, I love to ask for financial contributions. Every single dollar that you make allows us to expand and to serve more people in the Denver metro area and across Colorado. We are a part of the enterprise zone. And so any donation that you make of $250 is worth a 25% cash back credit from the state of Colorado.
Hmm.
And so I encourage everyone, I'll provide our website information. I encourage everyone to make that contribution so that we can continue providing that valuable, necessary service of belief, confidence, and courage in the women in our city.
Ah, amazing. All right. Well, we will include all that information in the show notes, both on YouTube and all of the different podcast channels. So please do donate. It sounds like this is an easy way to see an impact. So, well, Emra, thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate you. This was a lovely, lovely interview and great to know you a little bit better. And thank you so much for joining me on How I Turn the Corner.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having us.